Barbara Comstock, thank you for being here. I want to first hear about how Officer Sicknick's family is doing and what the case was that they made, and how did those senators vote no after hearing it?
Well, it was a tough day for them, but we did start out with Senator Romney, who, of course, was supportive, and that obviously was very helpful. And we ended our day with Senator Murkowski, who really talked to Gladys Sicknick, kind of mother to mother, and really apologized to her, saying, "I'm sorry that you have to come to do this, what should be done anyway." And Gladys Sicknick said, she's not the kind of person who would want to come forward. She's usually in the background, but she just felt she couldn't be quiet anymore. But so she was very, strong in those meetings. It was tough, as was Brian Sicknick's partner, Sandra Gomez, and then two of the officers who were there that day on January 6th, Officer Dunn, who knew Brian well, and then Officer Michael Fanone. And they all made very strong cases about why this should not only be done for the officers and for everything they went through front lines that continues to be minimized, but also for the country and for history, as Officer Dunn said. So I certainly agree with my friends Tom Ridge and Michael Chertoff and many of the other bipartisan efforts that have said we need this commission. And as Susan Collins said, she's going to keep working on this. There actually were 7 Republican votes if Senator Toomey had been able to be there. So I think as more information comes out, it's going to become even more apparent the need for this. And I also would expect that members of Congress will start, I don't know why they haven't started subpoenaing things right now. I said on January 7th they should be subpoenaing Donald Trump's phone records from that day and earlier, the organizers of the rally, all of the people who were involved. You think about all of the texts and the messages that went back and forth to the White House on that day to do something. We need to have a very distinct timeline, and that can start today with existing committees, with the effort to then turn it over to a commission down the road.
So, Barbara, you seem to have just put your finger on what I think had as much to do with the rupture between Kevin McCarthy and Liz Cheney. When Liz Cheney started talking about the sorts of things you just talked about, she included Kevin McCarthy being subpoenaed to share what he knows. And it was at that point that he seemed to pull the rug out, not just from Liz Cheney in leadership, but from Congressman Katko, who he sent with the mission of negotiating a bill, which was exactly what Congressman Katko achieved. The Democrats yielded to everything, and it seemed like the dog caught the car. Kevin McCarthy panicked and then had Scalise whip votes against the legislation he told Katko to negotiate. What was going on behind the scenes? Is Kevin McCarthy scared?
Well, listen, John Katko was a great colleague of mine. We came into the same class together. He was a prosecutor. I knew him, in my Justice Department days, and he did negotiate a very good, bipartisan agreement there. That's why he got 35 Republicans under those difficult circumstances. But the issue here is the truth is going to come out eventually. It would be better for everyone to participate in the process. There are going to be records that are there that whether the Justice Department starts doing it or other investigative bodies, eventually it'll come out. And I think for the sake of the country and for our safety, and because of the threats we know that still exist, that are out there, you have state officials now being threatened. Officer Fanone and Officer Dunn are getting death threats just for speaking out and talking about what happened to them. Officer Fanone, some of the members we talked to yesterday didn't realize that Officer Fanone's assailant, the one who tased him in the back of his neck 12 times, had been already arrested. And he was a well-known Trump activist who had been active since 2016. His name was Daniel Rodriguez. There were 3 others that were also arrested in the connection with the brutal assault on Officer Fanone that almost killed him. He had a heart attack also and still has. So they were not familiar with that. They didn't know that this was a Trump activist from California. And, he was someone talked about the deep state. He had been, really in all of these dark, on the internet talking about all of these conspiracy theories had really, strongly took hold with him. And that's why he was here with other friends. So that has to all be looked at, and how that connects to this rally on January 6th and all the people who were communicating back and forth. And those facts exist and those records exist, and there's going to be nothing you can do about getting rid of them. So we might as well know sooner, because we know they're still out there attacking even Republicans. And actually, I should point out, Michael Fanone, Officer Fanone, and Brian Sicknick are Republicans. And that's something that Brian Sicknick's partner pointed out to the members yesterday. She said he loved you guys. He was a Republican. He voted for Donald Trump. And yet we're leaving these guys on the field instead of getting to the truth, as Lisa Murkowski said.
Congresswoman Dean, can you do what Barbara Comstock is suggesting? Can you subpoena records from the White House, the phone call records, at least get the times, at least start to put some of these pieces of evidence in place while we wait for some sort of commission to be formed, either by Speaker Pelosi if the bipartisan efforts fall apart, or I guess there's some history of the Watergate Select Committee was a select committee in the Senate. Is there more investigative work that can be done in the interim?
Yes, we can, and we will. And of course, we have an administration that will not do what the previous administration did, which was block every subpoena, every attempt at oversight. But let me thank Congresswoman Comstock for her role, for her escorting Gladys Sicknick around yesterday in the Senate. How is it that Mrs. Sicknick's words, draped in her grief, fell on the deaf ears of senators? We needed only 10. We got 6. Too bad Senator Toomey, my own senator, wasn't there to vote yes. Where were 3 more? Where were all the others? Where were they in search of the truth? I'm furious with the Senate for leaving this woman, for requiring her to come to the Senate and then not heeding her words as she struggles through her grief. So yes, here in the House, we will do everything we possibly can. We will subpoena those who need to be subpoenaed. But the independent commission was the way to go. We don't need this to fall into party lines and narratives that become so poisonous. We need people who are not politically tied to take a look at what happened on January the 6th. Think about I was there, as you know, but for those who were not there, they're appalled. I have staff members furious today. They weren't there, but they actually say we have to learn the truth. I think a lot of Martin Luther King's words from the letter from Birmingham jail, which I used to teach in any writing course I ever taught over the course of 10 years. And what he said is we have to repent in this generation, not merely for the hateful words and actions of bad people, but for the appalling silence of good people. Mitch McConnell, Kevin McCarthy, your appalling silence, your appalling muzzling of the truth is shameful.
And Congresswoman, I mean, the reporting suggests it's more than their silence. I mean, they didn't stay silent and say, listen, vote your conscience, folks. They aggressively whipped support to kill it. I mean, this was killed by Kevin McCarthy and Mitch McConnell. What do you think they're hiding?
What exactly? What are they afraid of? What are they hiding? Are they complicit in some way? Will we uncover, and ultimately, and Barbara Comstock is absolutely right, we'll get to the truth. The facts will be revealed. The truth will be revealed. They're afraid of the truth. They're defending nonsense, and we know that. And so what I hope is that the American public rejects their alternative facts or their silence. I was thinking back to, the very first set of press conferences under the previous administration. And you remember the person who came forward and said, well, maybe there are alternative facts. Sadly, the previous administration.
Kellyanne Conway. Yeah.
Exactly. With who was our State of the Union? I'm forgetting who it was. Your colleague who asked her those questions. And it was
Todd,
yeah. Todd, yes. It was literally about the crowd size. Remember how long ago that was and how nonsensical that seemed. to argue alternative facts as to that which is discoverable and known. It just was bizarre. But sadly, guess what? 4, 5 years later, we see those seeds were sown, and we sadly are reaping the seeds of falsehoods, of alternative facts, of people who cannot actually face the truth. What's the most dangerous part of this is if we don't get to the bottom of this, we suffer and risk this repeating itself, and perhaps in even worse fashion. This was the interruption of what is precious to us, the peaceful transfer of power. Imagine that those who were there, who were hunted on that day, who could have been killed, but for the courageous acts of Officer Sicknick and every other Capitol Police officer, don't want to get to the truth. Shame on them.